Good afternoon. My name is Riham Rabi. I'm from Imperial College Iraqi Society, and this is Mohammed Najim. He's also the Vice President of the Society. I'm really sorry, I know you're really excited for this amazing event, but just to take a few minutes of your time. The Iraqi Society at Imperial College would really like to thank the Iraqi Cultural Centre for all their support and their hard work and effort in our most recent event. I'm not sure if I'm sure most of you have heard of it at least. It was last Friday, on the 22nd of February, Imperial College Iraqi Society held an Iraqi cultural exhibition, which hosted over 600 people with over 60 organizations and many known artists, poets, singers, musicians from all over Iraq. We're proud to announce that it was the biggest Iraqi cultural exhibition to happen in London with a variety of Iraqi cultural activities. Of course, it couldn't have happened without the support of the Iraqi Cultural Centre, and we'd really like to thank them for all their hard work and effort and their commitment and dedication in helping us and making us strive for a bigger challenge than it was. For this, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Iraqi Society itself. We're a small student-based society made of around 10 committee members, and we hold events throughout the year, including medical talks, political talks, social events, and this itself, the Iraqi Culture Exhibition, is one of our biggest flagship events of the year. So we would just like to ideally thank the Iraqi Cultural Centre for all their hard work and efforts in supporting us, and we really would love to see us working with them in the future. And for this, we've just got a small token to share our gratitude and our appreciation to the Iraqi Cultural Centre. And if Dr. Abdul Rahman, would please us with accepting it, that would be great. Thank you.
We would like to thank them as well. And we would like to say that the Iraqi Cultural Centre will be always part of not just the Iraqi society, but for all communities in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. It looks really amazing. Thank you.
I would like to say good evening and thank you very much for coming for this special event of the Iraqi Cultural Centre in London. We are gathering here tonight to commemorate the 6th anniversary of the bombing of the Al-Mutanabi street in Baghdad in 2007. And despite it being a sad memory and a tragic event, but don't we all feel a sense of hope and rejuvenation and resurrection for this most iconic street of the city, in the city of Baghdad, the ancient city of Baghdad, the city of history and knowledge, the great capital of the Islamic Arabic Empire which ruled from Spain to China. And it is not only Iraqi people who were saddened by this tragic event, as we shall see. We have with us tonight Mrs. Janet Brantley, who is originally American and doing a great deal to push forward with the help of her friend Margaret Cooter from Canada. They are pushing forward for this great project which is called Al-Mutanabi Street Starts Here, in order to revive and rebuild this iconic street. I must mention, though, that the man behind all this is Mr. Bobo Soleil. He is also American. He is a bookseller. He was very distraught when he knew about the bombing. Our message tonight, whether to American people or all people in the West, is one of friendship and love. Because at the height of the bombing in Iraq, Iraqi people were still very hospitable to Western journalists, and we read many stories of this kind in the Western press. And tonight is going to be just the same. Janet is going to proceed with the rest of the program, so I would say please enjoy yourself, and many thanks for coming. And there will be, after this, a tasty dinner from the delicious Iraqi cuisine. You all welcome, and thank you for coming.
Masa al-Khair.
Good evening.
Thank you for honoring me with your presence here tonight. Some of the poetry will be recited in Arabic and some in English. It doesn't matter if you don't understand the actual words. Just sit quietly and listen, just as you would if you were sitting alongside a river. We don't need to know the organic composition of a river to be moved by its beauty. I'll begin with an explanation of this project. Al-Mutanabi Street starts here. It's been called a literary bridge to Baghdad. The seed of the project must have been sown the very moment when San Francisco poet and bookseller Beau Beausoleil picked up his daily newspaper containing a story about the horrific event in Iraq on the previous day, March 5, 2007. He read that a car bomb had been exploded on Al-Mutanabi Street, Baghdad's historic booksellers market, killing more than 30 people, wounding more than 100. That this market, this literary and cultural center, Al-Mutanabi Street, which has been the heart and soul of the intellectual community for centuries, lay in ruin. It had been a place where people have come from miles around, hungry for knowledge, books, and stimulating conversation, stopping in cafes such as the Shahbandar Cafe for generations upon generations. And I must point out, we have books that actually were in the bombing here tonight from Al-Mutanabi Street. This is a very moving and special opportunity. It's a strange word to use, but those books speak so much by just sitting there on those plinths. On the other side of the world, in a used bookstore in California, Beau Beausoleil could not remain passive. In his opening words for the anthology published for the project, Beau states, "Sometimes the weight of our own silence becomes completely unbearable until we cannot take one more day of reading about blood, bone, and ash. And the moment comes when we recognize that this distant landscape is our own and that we must walk through it." He goes on to explain why he felt, as a poet and bookseller, an urgent need to keep this singular tragic event in our consciousness, because it has such deep historical and cultural implications for us here in this country and for the people of Iraq. And so the first bricks of the bridge were put into place. He began, Al-Mutanabi Street starts here, as a way to express solidarity with Iraqi booksellers, writers, and readers. Beau Beausoleil explains the project's title, saying that Al-Mutanabi Street starts here conveys the notion that wherever someone sits down to write towards the truth, or sits down to organize a memorial reading, that's where Al-Mutanabi Street
He also
starts.
asked letterpress printers to
His
create
first
broadsides.
action was to organize a memorial reading. He also asked letterpress printers to create broadsides as a response to the tragedy. The project evolved into the Al-Mutanabi Coalition as it gathered artists, writers, and poets from all over the globe. Countries involved so far: Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Italy, Lithuania, Malta, the Netherlands, Peru, Poland, Romania, Spain, South Korea, Switzerland, Thailand, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. British book artist and printer Sarah Bodeman soon joined the project and now coordinates artists in Europe. The original target of 130 broadsides has been reached, and they have been recently delivered to be part of the permanent collections at the National Library of
gathered
Baghdad.
artists, writers, and poets from all
As
over
an
the
added
globe.
visual response, book artists were asked to participate. 260 artist books, unique works of art in book form, also from contributors all over the world, are now being exhibited in different venues worldwide. Each artist was asked to create 3 books. The criteria for the book artist was as follows: to create work that reflect both the strength and fragility of books, but also show the endurance of ideas within them. We seek constructions of all the various vessels of the printed word, ones that pay homage to the truth that can rest between any 2 covers. We are looking for work that reflects both the targeted attack on the streets of booksellers, as well as the ultimate futility of those who try to erase thought. The John Rylands Library in Manchester and the Cambridge Arts Council in Massachusetts in the US are both currently exhibiting a complete set of books. Today, also in commemoration of the anniversary, there are events at the library in Manchester, as well as a reading that is taking place as I speak. There will be a photo of the library with the installed exhibit on the slideshow, but I encourage you to take a trip up north to see these amazing books that have traveled far and wide, made by artists who are miles away from Baghdad, but close in spirit. We have a small sample of books here this evening for you to see, which Margaret Kuchar will explain later. Al-Mutanabi Street was named after the greatest Arab poet, who was Iraqi, a 10th century poet, Al-Mutanabi, whose statue stands by the Tigris River. When the bomb exploded, out of the destruction emerged spring. Al-Mutanabi Street has become a river in its own right, flowing to wherever someone reads a poem in its honor, to wherever someone's heart breaks for the loss of life. It is moving water, flowing words that cannot be stopped. Wherever someone builds a bridge, Al-Mutanabi Street will wind its way there. In August of 2012, an anthology of poetry was published. It contains work from writers from both the East and the West. It was exciting for me to read and to find that many people think of Al-Mutanabi Street as a river. One of my favorite pieces is by Musa al-Nasari, called A Man in Love with Knowledge. His story is a true story of his life and how it has been influenced by the people and books of Al-Mutanabi Street. I will end with an excerpt from his story. The great efforts to restore the street mends my soul and gives me patience. It assures me that this deeply rooted street will come back one day to continue its intellectual and cultural role, to be a river that serves thinkers, scientists, and intellectuals. And as the old Arab adage says, Cairo writes, Beirut publishes, and Baghdad reads.
Which is all.
Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce poet Miriam Halimi, who will read a selection of her poems.
So I don't know if anybody here ever makes or eats kuba. The Iraqis write about Cuba, they make jokes about Cuba, and my mother-in-law came to England and she made Cuba in my kitchen, and now my husband and I sit actually and make it ourselves. So I feel like I've turned into my mother-in-law, which is an honor, because when I first saw her making Iraqi dishes, I thought, gosh, I don't know where to start. This feels too difficult.
I think there will be some Cuba tonight.
Great. Oh, wow. So here is the poem to celebrate and honor
Now I
Cuba.
get to know what it is.
She sits in my kitchen making Cuba the ancient way, with her hands. She always cooks with her hands. She pats the moist semolina in her palm, fashioning little cakes. Pushing in tiny meatballs, she seals the edge with finger and thumb. Her flesh, swelled with age, squeezes the single gold band. Chip red nail varnish gaily belies the olive skin, wrinkled again and again like the desert floor. My small son, eager to shape the dough in his hand, reaches out. His flesh, chubby with youth, brushes against her fingers, peacefully working the day. Between their touch lies the moment of learning, of passing on, of generation. The grandmother and the child making kuba in my kitchen, the ancient way. My brother-in-law is a sculptor he now lives in New York. This is one of his sculptures. And his father was a goldsmith in Baghdad. His father was the first person to import machines from here in England to cut gold. And so the goldsmiths in Iraq used to come into Baghdad and sleep overnight to use the machinery of Saleh Abu Makain, father of the machine they called him. So they didn't have to saw away by hand all the time. So there are lots of stories about that. And he said to his father one day, well, if we lived in Baghdad, what would you do about my sculptures? And this is the opening of the poem, is what his father said, and I think it's amazing. So it's called Beyond the Courtyard. If we lived in Baghdad, I would cast your sculptures in gold, like the sun on bleached rooftops, where the afternoon air shimmers mirage high, and the calls of pigeon keepers circle, dive, regroup. Eyes to the sky, breath tight in lungs, you release your plum, your darling, rehearsed for weeks. Beyond the bird cages where shadows gather, a maid fills water jars, ice cold by nightfall. You will sleep with your brothers under stars, huge as the birds you train. In your dreams the courtyard hums, women flow in and out, constant as the river, pile pita on benches, hands steeped in flour, shaped sambosak stuffed with walnuts, closed with a thumb, stuffed with dates, sealed with a key, marked like a coded secret. The gate swings open and you are gone. Beyond the desert river, flying across English skies, Canadian snow, to breakdance with the children of the apple. On the city streets, rhythms rise to skyscrapers, sculpt rich blue lights, throw shadows onto wood floor where you have come to rest, dance, and break the limit of standard space. Thank you. And I never met my father-in-law. He died before I met my husband. But the family tell me a story that the maid, when they lived in Baghdad, loved to wash his clothes, because inside the pockets at the bottom were tiny little pieces of gold, and she'd collect them all together, and if she gave them to him, he made her a ring. So you have to write a poem about that. So my father-in-law and the maid, she loved to wash his clothes, gleaning scraps of gold along the pocket hemline. At night, her work done, she sewed a drawstring pouch, stowed away her treasure. One morning she ran to him, laughing, her arm outstretched, palm flat, a heap of gold gleaming like sunlight on the Tigris. Patiently she waited with the women in the courtyard, shaping Peter as they gossiped, laying down pickles in the dark cellar out of the midday heat, until he called her, gave her the ring he'd fashioned from the crumbs of gold, her honesty rewarded. Saleh Abu Makain they called him, and journeyed from all Iraq to sleep overnight in old Baghdad. He cut their gold on machines bought from England, saved them weary days with a saw. My father-in-law, a respected man, known at the gates. He is gone now, sucked into the great exiles, post-48, the Middle East. Sometimes I think of the little maid, in the last days before the crisis, gleaning her gold beside the Tigris. I'm going to finish with a poem about books, because it's a poem that I wrote very separate from all of this, but it seems the right poem to read tonight. When I was a child growing up in England, I had no idea that books were ever destroyed. Books were these amazing objects that I would take from the library and read, and it never occurred to me that anyone would ever destroy a book. And then you become an adult and you know that this is something that happens in the world. And there is an artist called Qasim Sabti. Do people know his work? And he has done work in Iraq, restoring books and making art objects out of them. The books that are destroyed where you just have the spine, and we have one on the wall in our living room. So I wrote a poem about it. Untitled, 2008, Qasim Sabti, Mixed Media Collage. 8 years old, I walked down November streets, our little London suburb, to the silence of the library and reading, which came before everything, was the reason to be. Lost all day with the little women, Dickon at my side in the secret garden, I sailed with Moonfleet to Treasure Island, lost in the fictional dream. My mother and I sat reading as the coals burned red in the old living room. Not even the tick of a clock penetrated our silence. I could not imagine burning, stealing, destroying books. Qasim Sabti, an artist in agony as they looted the Baghdad libraries, books violated in the bewilderment of war, collected broken spines, shattered bodies, healed and repaired, a book cover here, a torn page there, turned them into poems on canvas, painted blue, red and white. We have one in our living room, a piece of old Baghdad in our London home. It reaches a long blue finger all the way back to your father's house beside the Tigris, near the Sharjah market and the pomegranates, all the way to the room where you were born. This broken book, this word, this blue. Thank you very much.
And that was really wonderful. And now we have a graduate student at SOAS, Fred Fiegel, who will read a poem in Arabic by 10th century poet al-Mutanabi. Would you like to sit with me?
السلام عليكم مساء الخير. هذه هي قصيدة من قصائد المتنبي. وحر قلباه ممن قلبه شبم ومن بجسمي وحالي عنده سقم ما لي أكتم حبا قد برى جسدي وتدعي حب سيفي الدولة الأمم إن كان يجمعنا حب لغرته فليت أنا بقدر الحب نقتسم قد زرته وسيوف الهند مغمدة وقد نظرت إليه وسيوف دم فكان أحسن خلق الله كلهم وكان أحسن ما في الأحسن الشيم فوت والعدو الذي يممته ظفر في طيه أسف في طيه نعم قد ناب عنك شديد الخوف واصطنعت لك المحابة ما لا تصنع البهم ألزمت نفسك شيئا ليس يلزمها ألا يوارهم أرض ولا علم أكلما رمت جيشا فانثنى هربا تصرفت بك في أعثاره الهمم عليك هزمهم في كل معترك وما عليك بهم عار إذا انهزموا أما ترى ظفرا حلوا سوى ظفر تصافحت فيه بيد والهند واللمم يا عدل الناس إلا في معاملتي فيك الخصام وأنت الخصم والحكم أعيدها نظرات منك صادقة أن تحسب الشحم في من شحمه ورمه. وما انتفاع أخي الدنيا بناظره إذا استوت عنده الأنوار والظلم. سيعلم الجمع ممن ضم مجلسنا بأنني خير من تسعى به قدم. أنا الذي نظر الأعمى إلى أدبي وأسمعت كلماتي من به صمم. أنا مملء جفوني عن شواردها ويسهر الخلق جراها ويختصم. وجاهل مده في جهله ضحكي حتى أتته يد فراسة وفم. إذا رأيت نيوب الليث بارزة فلا تظنن أن الليث يبتسم. مهجتي من هم صاحبها أدركتها بجواد ظهره حرم. رجلاه في رقدي رجل واليدان يد وفعله ما تريد الكف والقلم. ومرهف سرت بين جحفلين به حتى ضربت وموج الموت يلتتم. الخيل والليل والبيداء تعرفني والسيف والرمح والكرتاس والقلم. صحبت في الفلوات الوحش منفردا حتى تعجب مني الكور والأكم. يا من يعز علينا أن نفارقهم وجداننا كل شيء بعدكم عدم. ما كان أخلقنا منكم بتكرمة لو أن أمركم من أمرنا أمم. إن كان سركم ما قال حاسدنا فما لجرح إذا أداكم ألم. وبيننا لو رعيتم ذاك معرفة إن المعارف في أهل النهى دمم. كم تطلبون لنا عيبا فيعجزكم ويكره الله ما تأتون والكرم. ما أبعد العيب والنقصان من شرفي أنا ذريا والذاني الشيب والحرم. ليت الغمام الذي عندي صوائح يزيلهن إلى من عنده البيم. أرى النوى يقتضيني كل مرحلة لا تستقل بها الوخادة الرسم. لئن تركنا ضميرا عن ميامننا ليحتفن لمن وضعتهم ندم. إذا ترحلت عن قوم وقد قدروا ألا تفارقهم فالراحلون هم. شر البلاد مكان لا صديق به والشر ما يقصب الإنسان ما يصم. شكرا.
I must say it's a great poem and it takes a great effort, a huge effort to read. I congratulate you for doing so. It's one of the most, it's a famous poem for المتنبي and it is full of philosophy and thought and with a very strong construction. So congratulations for your reading.
First, I would like to thank the Iraqi Cultural Center, and I hope really to stay open for all the Iraqi people, despite their background or sectarian. Open the door for all the cultures in different society, different ethnics in London. I would like to thank Janet and the people behind this project, beautiful project, and I really appreciate it to give me a chance to have participate in this event. I haven't seen المتنبي before I left my country, Iraq. So the first time I visited, it's after the 2003. I was like a child, was very hungry, and gave him lots of chocolates. When I see this amount of different books, and I was very excited. So when I heard about the bombing, I was really devastated. I was really angry, and I decided to go back to visit المتنبي again. And I've seen it was during the reconstruction of the street. The beautiful things was really moving. I've seen the books on the top of the rubble, on the top of the stones. It's like the book still resist, still saying that I'm still there, I'm very strong. And that's really moved me. And I wrote an article at that time about, so it's about the person who really affected by this crime, the disaster. It's Mr. Mohammed Khashali, who's the owner of the famous Shabanzer cafe there. He lost his 5 of his children, one of his grandchild, and followed by his wife, because she couldn't stand the this tragedy. So she died after that. So he lost all these, and I've seen him sitting on the street in front of his cafe. It's been destroyed. He said, "This is my 7th child." So I'm going to read the article I wrote. It's mainly about this hero, this really amazing gentleman who, when I talked to him, he didn't say anything out of his anger, out of his grief. He just tried to. Thank you so much. He even was proud of Baghdad, of that street. And the most amazing thing is he gave me a small book. It's like a booklet. He wrote it after this tragedy. He put the history on that book, and the pictures of all the people who died there in the street. And he talked about the people who lost their life in a very proud way. And he said, Baghdad is like a tree full of fruit, so everyone tried to hit it by stone. So even at that moment, he tried to be proud of the Baghdad, proud of المتنبي, proud of his cafe, who's, thank God, has been rebuilt and in a very nice way, and it's really still receiving people from all around Baghdad. And I visited later, and I took some pictures, but I'm not sure if it's showing me here, but
I'm sorry, they're not working.
It's okay. We've seen pictures on the film. That film was really nice. So, and you see, I'm sure you've been seeing the bombing and how was the street during that time. So I'm going to read just a few a few paragraphs of the article I wrote at that time. صمود الكتاب بوجه الخراب. That's what I found when I've seen the books climbing the stones and rubble. بعد فراق لأكثر من 25 عام اقترح أخي أن أزور شارع المتنبي، فلم أزوره قبل الرحيل. تنقلت بين الكتب مثل طفل محروم من العيد وأطلقوه في مدينة ألعاب. فرحت أن شعبنا ما زال مولع بالقراءة والعلم، وليس كما يقولون عنه يحكي أكثر ما يسمع ويكتب أكثر ما يقرأ. كان مقهى الشابندر مزدحما لدرجة وقوف الزبائن في خارج المقهى. هناك التقيت بأصدقاء لم أرهم زمنا. حين سمعت بجريمة تفجير المتنبي أو شارع المتنبي صرخت غضبا. لماذا؟ تردد صدى صرختي بصخرة حقد القومجية الذين سموا قتلنا مقاومة، والمتأسلمين الذين دعوه جهادا ضد الناس المتعبين، ضد العلم وضد الكلمة. لكنها كانت محاولة فاشلة لاقتلاع الحب والأمل، اقتلاع ذلك الذراع الشارع الذي يحتضن الجميع ويوحدهم على غاية حب الإبداع والبحث عن الحقيقة. شارع المتنبي الذي وجد فيه العراقي ضالته وسط فوضى الخراب والتخريب، ليبعد أشباح الحقد التي صارت تتجول بكل ركن من زوايا الحياة، ومتنفسا يعيد له توازنه بعيدا عن همومه اليومية من كهرباء وماء وغاز وسوق ومدارس وغيرها من إرهابيين وبقايا النظام السابق وقوات الاحتلال المستنفعين من غدر القومجيين والمتأسلمين. هناك صدمت بحجم الخراب وبطء عملية التعمير. في ذلك الوقت I wrote this article in 2008, so it was the beginning of reconstruction of the whole street. وقفت لأصور بعض الكتب التي زاحمت أكوام التراب والطابوق وصور المأساة التي ما زالت ماثلة أمامهم. كان هناك يجلس بهيبة المحارب الذي يتأمل فريق جنوده الشهداء، يتطلع لنا بصمت دون أن يسأل من أنتم، ويفتح قلب الذكريات وعينه لا تفارق مقهى الشابندر الذي لم يبقى منه غير أطلال تنتظر إعادة شمل رواده بفارغ الصبر. فوجئت أنه السيد محمد الخشالي صاحب ذلك المقهى، وسموه بعض الشعراء أبا الشهداء. وقفت ذاهلة ومرتبكة أمام تلك النظرات التي لم يقتل الحزن بريقها ولم تطفئ الفاجئة نور الأمل والحب فيها. بغداد كالنخلة المثمرة الكل يرجمها، هكذا يحل الخشالي سبب تكالب الطامعين وضباع الجشع والحاقدين على العراق. لم يردد مقولة الشامتين من ضعاف النفوس نستاهل لأننا كذا وكذا. فالخشالي حتى بهذه المصيبة يفاخر ببغداد ويجعلها نخلة شامخة معطاء، وأعدائها مجرد أغبياء لا هم لهم سوى التخريب. وتذكرت قصيدة أهداها له خلدون جاويد نشرت في الحوار المتمدن: أنت العراق الأبي ببرده، نسر تضيق بجناحه سماء، يبقى العراقيون أصلد صخرة كسرت عليها الريح والأنواء. انطلق بصوت هادئ جليل يحكي عن أبنائه الأربعة وحفيده الذين استشهدوا كلهم في تلك الفاجعة، وتبعتهم رفيقة دربه التي لم تصمد أمام الكارثة. يجوز قبالة الجريح الآخر المقهى الذي حافظ عليه وصانه، بل جعله متحف لتراث بغداد من خلال الصور التي تحكي عن تاريخ بغداد في ذلك الوقت. قال: المثقف هو من يستشهد أمام كتبه وليس من يسرق جهد غيره. هؤلاء المساكين الذين لم يكن لديهم ما يبيعوه غير الكتب التي قرأوها وأحبوها وأرادوا أن يشركوا الآخر بها مقابل مبلغ زهيد يقيهم الجوع. هؤلاء هم الشهداء. I just want to say during the most horrible crime committed against the people was the sanction. The sanctions forced people to sell their furnitures, even the doors, and then the books. That's the only way they could survive. They were selling their books for some amount of money to provide their children. ثم تابع الخشالي بصوت اختلط به الألم مع الأمل: بلاد الخير محاربة. العراقي الأصيل يحب العلم ويحب الثقافة وقلبه رحيم، أما هؤلاء المجرمين فهناك خلل بعراقهم، لابد أنهم من مخلفات الماضي ومن الأقوام الحاقدة على العراق. I should read just a few, but ذلك المناضل الذي صمد جيلا وهو يودع أبنائه وحفيده ورفيقة دربه. تلألأت الدموع في عينيه حين حكى عن أمه التي تعلقت بأحفادها. اعتذرت منه لتقليب المواجع، ثم أشار لنا أن ننتظر ليهدينا كتابا ألفه بعد الفاجعة. وضعه حسب ما قال وهو يتابع فضائيات ويسمع لغط البعض ممن لم يتعبوا أنفسهم بالبحث والتدقيق، ولم تثنه الفاجعة عن تسليط الضوء على تاريخ ذلك الشارع الذي يعرفه كما يعرف ابنه أو يعرف أبيه. أراد بكتابه أن يتحدى من أحرق الكتاب وقارئه وبائعه، فوضع به تاريخ الشارع وزينه بصور أولاده وغيرهم من الشهداء ليكون مصباحا يقول إن هؤلاء الشهداء سيبقون شعلة تضيء درب من يسير بدرب الحياة وجمرة تحرق القتل وغربان الظلام. كان ردا جميلا على من يقول ما قيمة الكلمة أمام ذلك الخراب، ليقول إن الكلمة الجميلة هي الأبقى، وآمالنا هيهات ما ذبلت وللكون انتهى أو حلت البأساء. Thank you so much for your attention.
Next, I want to introduce to you poet Adnan Al-Sayegh. I hope I said that right. I don't think I did. He is going to read a selection of his poetry in Arabic, and David Bradley will read the same poems in English. So we have the honor of hearing his poetry in both languages. So I present to you now Adnan Al-Sayegh.
سأقرأ مجموعة من القصائد إلى شارع المتنبي. نص: نسيت نفسي على طاولة مكتبتي ومضيت وحين فتحت نسيت نفسي على طاولة مكتبتي ومضيت وحين فتحت خطوتي في الطريق اكتشفت أنني لا شيء غير ظل نص أراه يمشي أمامي بمشقة ويصافح الناس كأنه أنا.
These were translated by Stephen Watts and Marga Burgui Artajo. And this one's titled Text. I forgot myself at my library desk and got up to go. As I started up the road, I realized that I was nothing but the shadow of a text, that I could see walking uneasily in front of me and greeting people as if it were me.
كأس. في الحانة كانت بغداد خيوط دخان تتصاعد من أنفاس الجلاس، ووراء وأصابع عازفة سكرة تتراقص بين الوتر المهموس وبين الكاس. وإلى طاولتي يجلس قلبي ملتحفا غصته يلهو يرنو ولها للخصر المياس، ووراء زجاج الحانة أشباح تترصدني تحصي حول الأنفاس، وأنا محتار يا ربي أين أدير القلب وأين أدير الرأس.
glass. It was in Baghdad, in the bar, ice breaths rising from the drinkers' mouths, and the fingers of drunk chanteurs dancing between the silent music and the glass. My heart sat on the table, in rapt torment, looking on spellbound at the shimmying waist. And behind the tavern windows, ghouls are watching me, keeping tabs on the breaths around me. And I feel confused, O Lord, where to turn my heart to, where to turn my head.
شيزوفرينيا. في وطني يجمعني الخوف ويقسمني، رجلا يكتب والآخر خلف ستائر نافذتي يرقبني.
Schizophrenia. In my homeland, fear gathers me up and pulls me apart. A man who writes and another who watches over me from behind closed curtains.
طلقة عابرة ثقبت نومه فتدفق فوق وسادته دم أحلامه الخاسرة.
A hole. A passing shot glanced his sleep, and the blood of defeated dreams gushed vicious onto his pillow.
أبواب. أطرق بابا أفتحه، لا أبصر نفسي إلا بابا أفتحه أدخل، لا شيء سوى باب آخر. يا ربي كم بابا يفصلني عني.
Doors. I rap on a door, it opens up. All I see of the door is me. It opens up, through I go. Nothing but another door. Lord, how many more? Holding myself back from me.
تأويل. يملونني سطورا ويبوبونني فصولا ثم يفارسونني ويطبعونني كاملا ويوزعونني على المكتبات ويشتمونني في الجرائد وأنا لم أفتح فمي بعد.
Critical. They write up my lines, split me up into chapters, catalog my references, print the whole works, get me in the bookshops, badmouth me in print, and I haven't even opened my mouth yet.
العراق الذي يبتعد كلما اتسعت في المنافي خطاه، والعراق الذي يبتعد كلما انفتحت نصف نافذة قلت آه، والعراق الذي يرتعد كلما مر ظل تخيلت فوهة تترصدني أو متاه، والعراق الذي نفتقد نصف تاريخي أغان وكحل ونصف طغاة.
Iraq disappears with every step its exiles take, and contracts whenever a window's left half shut, and trembles whenever shadows cross its path. Maybe some gun muzzle was eyeing me up an alley. The Iraq that's gone, half its history was coal and song, the other half evil, wrong.
في حديقة الجند المجهول، الجندي الذي نسي أن يحلق ذقنه ذلك الصباح فعاقبه العريف، الجندي القتيل الذي نسوه في غبار الميدان، الجندي الحالم بلحية الكثة التي أخذت تنمو شيئا فشيئا حتى أصبحت بعد 10 سنوات غابة متشابكة الأغصان تصدح فيها البلابل ويلهو في أراجيحها الصبيان ويتعانق تحت أفيائها العشاق، الجندي الذي غدا متنزها للمدينة، ماذا لو كان قد حلق ذقنه ذلك الصباح؟
In the garden of the unknown soldier. The soldier who that morning forgot to shave his hair and was punished for it by his sergeant. The soldier left fallen in the dust of battle. The beautiful soldier with his thick beard that got to grow little by little, until, after 10 years, it was a forest of tangled brush, such that nightingales sang in his branches, and children always played in his swings. and lovers came closer in his shade. That soldier who grew into a park for the whole town, what if that day he'd shaven his head?
تهجدات. لم ترى ربك إلا بالنصل وبالدم، وأنا أبصره في الكلمة، في النغمة، في زرقة عينيها واليم.
Night prayer. You see your God only in blades and blood. I perceive him in a word and a song, and in the blue of her eyes and the sea.
آيات نسخت آيات، آيات نسخت آيات، وتريد لرأسك أن يبقى جلمودا لا يتغير والسنوات.
Verses have annulled verses, and you want your head rock hard and unchanged through the years.
يا هذا الفان، يا هذا الفان، ولتنظر كيف تحاور ربك والشيطان. أكثير أن تتعلم كيف تحاور إنسان؟
You who are a man, consider how you talk with your Lord and the devil. Is it then too much to hope you'd learn how to talk with your fellow men?
لا ناقوس ولا مئذنة يا عبد، لماذا لا تسمع ربك في الناي؟
Bell or minaret, O servant of God, why won't you hear your Lord in a flute?
القصيدة الأخيرة يوليسيس. على جسر مالمو رأيت الفرات يمد يديه ويأخذني، قلت أين؟ ولم أكمل الحلم حتى رأيت جيوش أمية من كل صوب تطوقني، وداعا لنافذة في بلاد الخراب، وداعا لسعف تجرده الطائرات من الخضرة الداكنة، وداعا لتنور أمي، وداعا لتاريخنا المتآكل فوق الروازين، وداعا لما سوف نتركه في اليدين، وداعا نغادره الوطن المر، لكن إلى أين؟ كل المنافي أمر. النخيل الذي ظللتني طوالعه لم يعد منه غير بقايا تصاوير شاحبة ومصاطب فارغة، وجذوع مشانق ترنو لأعناقنا الحالمة، والفرات الذي عمدتني مواجعه لم يزل سادرا بأنين القرى الهائمة. يوليس يوليس، ليتك لم تصل الآن، ليت الطريق إلى مالمو كان أبعد أبعد أبعد. أي هذا الغريب الذي لم يجد لحظة مبهجة، كيف تغدو المنافي سجونا بلا أسيجة.
Ulysses. On Malmo Bridge I saw the Euphrates stretching out its hands to carry me. Where to? I said, and my dream couldn't end until I saw the Umayyad army besieging me from every direction. Goodbye to a window in the land of devastation. Goodbye to the palms pared of their green by the war plains. Goodbye to the clay oven of my mother. Goodbye to our history rusting on its racks. Goodbye to what may be left in our hands. Farewell. We're leaving a bitter land. But going where? All exile is bitter. The palms whose helixes used to give me shade, of them nothing's left but a pale image, empty benches now, and their trunks, gallows for our dreaming necks. And the Euphrates, whose pain baptized me, flows on impassive past plaintive villages. Oh, Ulysses, if you hadn't come, if only the road to Malmo were long, 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 long. You, stranger unable to touch one instant of joy, how come all exile now is a prison without walls?
Thank you very much.
I truly felt that I was sitting by a river listening to the beautiful voice of Adnan. Well, David's voice is beautiful too, but I hear his all the time. So that was really amazing.